Hey listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I'm chatting with Lindsay Barnett. Lindsay is an anthropology graduate from the University of California, Berkeley, and with an MBA from the UCLA Anderson School. Lindsay has been melding the worlds of culture and business for a couple of decades. She is a facilitator, workplace experience strategist, ICF PCC coach, speaker, and award-winning author of Working Hell to Working Well, Making Your Company Work for You. In her free time, Lindsay is a passionate traveler and global citizen, having lived in Latin America and Asia Pacific. She is a dedicated yogi and believer in mind and body connection. Lindsay is a co-founder of Our Kind of Club, an organization dedicated to inspiring kindness in everyday actions. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband, 2 teenage kids, and a very big dog. Welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thank you for having me, Kara.
Yes, I am so excited to have you. Lindsay and I connected outside, obviously, of this podcast tonight, and I just loved her message, so I'm so excited to bring this to you all tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, well, I feel like we are so much more than these bios we have about ourselves. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, I think the bio captures a lot of the things that I've done, but I think, like you, right? I have so many different identities: mom, daughter, sister, wife, friend, right? They're, coworker, collaborator. There are so many things that, really kind of make up the different parts of me and the different roles that I get to play in life. Yeah, I just, I think the red thread across all of those different roles is just really wanting to have a good life.
Yeah.
Having a high quality life, having flexibility, autonomy, purpose, all the things that everybody wants.
Yeah.
And being able to travel to, and all those things.
Yeah. I think I was thinking as you were saying all your roles, it's very dependent on which hat you're wearing, and that could change from minute to minute, right? Of like what role you're playing and how you're acting. And I've had this conversation a lot recently, as I feel like we should be able to put mom on our resume. And I can't speak from a father's perspective, so I don't know this, but I often have this of like, I am busier now than I ever was when I was full-time in a physical therapy practice as a physical therapist. Like this is the busiest I have ever been.
Yeah. Sounds about right. It's funny. I was doing a workshop for myself. Like, I was a participant in the workshop.
Yeah.
They were asking the question, like we were doing a bunch of brainstorming. They're asking the question, who's your biggest client or something like that. And in parentheses, they said kids and pets included. And I had this like huge realization that the majority of my time is managing everybody else's calendar, their lives, right? Like, my calendar is just one of the calendars, right? I've got my husband's calendar, my 2 kids' calendar. The dog has a biological calendar that makes me aware of when needed.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, like those are the people that I service the most.
Yeah. I love that that was in parentheses because that is just so fitting
I know. You're like, wait
to
a
what
minute,
it is.
we're at a business gathering, but yeah, let's keep it
Yeah.
real.
And even going to a job, right? You do wear a lot of hats a lot of times in a job, but
Yeah.
it's just like maybe it's the constant management that a home or your
Yes.
children require versus at a job, it's like solely that's what you're there to do. There's not all these other things getting thrown into the mix of the
Yes.
chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, today
Exactly.
happens to be your anniversary of when your book released, right? On April 16th
Yes.
of last year. So, working
Yes.
hell to working well. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about it?
Yeah. So, really, the origin of the book came from my experience going through the pandemic with young school age kids, trying to work a very intense full time job, kind of crying uncle, but getting very lucky in that I pitched to my manager at the time, working a part time schedule. And he thankfully said yes. And in that experience of working part time and just slowing time down and slowing down all of the responsibilities and the multiple identities and whatnot, I really uncovered a very different way of being. And what I also realized, because I'm a coach, that I was talking with a lot of my clients who the ones that were living a really good life also had some similar practices and similar ways of operating. And so I really just said, hey, let's put it out there.
Yeah,
Right? Let's see who can we help? How can I help people find their way? There's no magic formula for work-life harmony,
yeah,
but what are the steps that I can take if I am ready to move forward? So it is a book about action.
I love it.
There's mindfulness and whatnot, but I really tried to curate all the books that I've read, all of the practices and tactics, and give people kind of a guide to moving forward on creating greater work-life harmony for themselves.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it takes a large catalyst like COVID. Or
Yeah,
for me, we moved overseas. And
yeah,
so my work life changed drastically when we did that. And I think until we're forced to make a change, a lot of times we don't do that change. And we might be
yeah.
unhappy and, just going through the motions and feeling that, but it really does take a catalyst to make us be like, okay, maybe something needs to give here.
Yeah. And some people need the catalyst, and some people just need to be really clear in their intention.
Yeah.
So, something needs to push you, right?
Yeah.
And I think really what we're both calling out is that it's action oriented.
Yeah.
There, if you just kind of hem and haw and think, okay, this is, I really wish things would change,
Yeah.
the odds of them changing are pretty slim. But if you actually take even a really small action, it could be a big action that kind of becomes the forcing function, or it can be a little action.
Yeah. Like you said, that realization. As you were talking about the work life balance, I know you've lived outside of LA as
Yeah,
well, and we've lived in
yeah,
various places around the world. And I've had jobs in some of them, not all of them. Sometimes my job has just been mom.
yeah.
But I have found that the work ethic was very different. And ethic is not the right word. The work life balance was very different
Mm.
in the different areas of the world that we have lived. Did you find that as well?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I think, I would say it varied though, because in Hong Kong, I feel like it was probably much closer to the US
Okay. Yeah.
versus Australia and South America.
Yeah.
I feel like, Hong Kong, I think, is kind of the global business center,
Oh, yeah. I would guess that.
operates on global hours and, whatnot, but, or at least at the time that I was living there. Um, but, Australia to me was like amazing, that had kind of this, you work hard, play hard,
Yeah.
kind of way of being. But there was, the people there, I felt really were all about quality of life. And I just really appreciated that. And to be fair, I think, you know, not to get maybe political, you can cut this if you need to, but the fact that in Australia, people have healthcare and education
Yeah.
taken care of, which are incredibly large financial stressors for most families, I think allows people to feel a better quality of life because you don't have to stay in a job for the benefits.
Yeah,
You
true.
don't have to stay in a job so that you could pay for your kid to go to college, right?
Yeah.
So I think there are some of those, safety net kind of cultures that even that really can change the conversation
Yeah.
for a broad swatch of people.
That and when I think culturally across, that's the norm, right? For me, the best work-life balance I ever had was when we lived in Hawaii. And
Oh,
obviously they don't have those same safeguards, but culturally that was the mentality across the islands,
yeah,
right? And that there was something outside of work that wasn't your only
yeah,
identity. And even when we lived in Europe, you don't introduce yourself by like, hi, I'm Kara, I'm a physical therapist. Like we tend to do. They don't
yeah,
even ask you. They might not even ever ask you what your job is
yeah,
in a full conversation because that to them is not the identity that you have.
right, right,
And so I think again, maybe culturally or just kind of what the norms are in society, I think that maybe influences that as
oh,
well.
for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Did you pull from some of that stuff you've learned from working in different areas? Did you pull some of that for your book and use that?
I mean, I think so when I was in Australia, I didn't actually work paid employment.
Okay.
I did try to be a children's book author, so that was kind of where I was spending my time when I
Yeah.
wasn't, being with the kids.
Yeah.
And that was its own experience for me in just establishing a different identity for myself, recognizing what were the things that I was missing from work, and how do I really acknowledge what those needs are so that I can find other ways of meeting those needs. So I think sometimes going on that journey, and that I know that journey for me really gave me some clarity around what do I really need from work? What makes it satisfying for me? And if work isn't satisfying for me, how else do I scratch that itch?
Yeah, I think that's a great point you bring up is you had the space to do that because that is the other really challenging part is when you're working yourself to the bone, you don't have the
Mm.
space to even think about that or consider other options. And so I think these past few years where I've been in the stay-at-home mom role outside of podcasting,
Mm.
which is a completely flexible job,
Yeah.
but it has allowed me the space and time to explore what
Yes.
could be different.
Yeah.
So, was there a moment that you realized that all the pieces of different careers you've had along the way were actually connected to one another?
This is kind of a random story, but it makes me laugh a little bit. I was going through old, I don't know, like old stuff from my parents' house, right? Like,
Okay.
like the boxes of keepsakes and whatnot. And I happened to come across my 16th birthday quiz. And it said, it was like, how well do you know Lindsay? And there
Yeah.
were, I don't know, 16 questions probably. And one of the questions was, what does Lindsay want to be when she grows up? And I looked at that and I was like, oh, what did I say? And the options were I think it was like a therapist, an actor, um, what were the other ones? A gossip columnist and a teacher. So it was
Oh,
like all of
yeah.
those things. And I started laughing when I saw that because I feel like in my career, I have largely, in some shape or form, like done all of those things, right? Like if you think about
Yeah.
being in human resources for a good part of my life, one part therapy, one, the facilitation stuff is one part acting.
Yeah.
The gossip columnist, whether you like it or not, you get pulled in to the
Yeah.
gossip. And then teaching, right? A lot of it is teaching people, how things work around here,
Yeah.
or how to be a leader or whatnot. So it's funny how I guess that was a moment where I looked at that and I was like, oh my God, I have done all of these in their own shape and form. But yeah,
Yeah. They must have been your strengths from early on, right?
I guess so. I guess so. Things I like doing.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to talk about on the show because, as I had mentioned to you, I'm a military spouse, and a lot of
Yeah.
us have to leave jobs we love for
Yeah.
moving around every 2 to 3 years. And I have found that once you can prove to yourself that you are more than your job and you have a
Yeah.
much bigger skill set, even though, I was trained as a physical therapist, that was my
Right.
job. Those skills can work in so many other ways,
Oh yeah.
but you have to get a little bit creative and maybe have some time and space to think about how else could I use these skills in a different way. And I think that's a really important point for the listeners as well, is you're not just your job, that those skills can go
No.
so much farther.
Yeah. I mean, in general, just knowing you're not just your job,
Yeah.
right, is something that is just so important. And, if you look around today, layoff after layoff after
Yeah.
layoff, right, in the news. And the thing that actually really gives me hope, and, as devastating as I know layoffs can be for people, it can also be, as we were talking about earlier, the catalyst,
Yeah.
right? It was the catalyst for me in starting my own business. And I saw a statistic that even though the job market, like the number of jobs were down, the number of LLC filings were up.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that, even though sometimes we are overly consumed with work in this country, we're also super entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And, it's just what you're saying, right? How do I put my skills, my interests, my needs, my wants, all of that into one place? Let's channel it somewhere else.
Yeah. And that gives you the freedom then to be like, oh, okay. And at the cost of what? Like, do I want to be at my kids' games? If you have that
Right.
flexibility, right? Like, do I want to be at my kids' games? Do I want to be involved with their activities, or can I be?
Yeah.
And when you're in that entrepreneur setting, or like you asked for more of a part-time role,
Yeah.
making it fit your life too, I think is really important. And it goes a long way into the satisfaction.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's really, to me, work-life harmony is not to be confused with the concept of work-life balance, because work-life balance is this notion of 50-50. I'm
Yeah.
50% at work and 50% at home, and that never happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, some weeks you're 80-20, some weeks you're 70-30, some weeks you're, 70-30 in the other direction. And that, like, work-life harmony is really about recognizing that work is part of my life, but not all of my life.
Yeah.
And I can ebb and flow with whatever the needs are and of the moment.
Yeah. Well, what is your wish for readers? What do you hope they'll take away when they pick up your book?
I mean, my number one wish is that you recognize that you can be the change,
Yeah.
right? I think what I noticed, and part of the reason why I think I also wrote the book, being on the organizational side for so long, I just really saw the stalemate, right? There was this,
Yeah.
oh, organizations, employees, you're responsible for that. And employees saying, well, how can I be responsible for that if you keep dumping work on me?
Yeah.
And there was just this stalemate, which meant nothing was happening. There was no action. And so, to me, yes, organizations have a role in making change. This system is built in a lot of organizations for people to be overworked. But we can feel the power and the sense of agency in ourselves to at least make things better for ourselves. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times people get caught up in their own stories, and they don't often test the story to see, is this really true?
Yeah.
And so you get stuck in a pattern of working that isn't optimal,
Yeah.
but you've got to kind of play with it and experiment and see if you can find different ways to work that work for you.
Yeah. I love that. All of that.
Yeah.
Do more of that, please.
Be the
For us all.
change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Do what works for you.
Yeah. What did you learn about yourself through writing the book?
It's interesting. I feel like maybe because we're at the year anniversary, I might get emotional. It's funny because I think I wrote the book originally, like I started writing the book because I was a little mad at organizations and feeling like they're taking advantage of people, and I don't know. So I felt like I was a little mad when I started writing the
Yeah.
book. But by the time I got to the conclusion, I kept reading the conclusion and crying because I felt so much hope that there's a way out of here, and
Yeah.
we can't have all the power. There's still going to be a power differential,
Yeah.
but we can take back some of our power, and we can test, and we can learn, and we can grow, and we can do what, matters for us and our own mental health and well-being and family and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess hope was
I love
my
that.
big takeaway.
Yeah. So I know you're a coach. You've mentioned you're a coach, and so I'm sure you're working with people that are going through like implementing the change. Is that kind of what you're doing with your coaching as well, or?
Yeah, I mean it runs the gamut.
Okay.
You know, sometimes, people are yes, wanting better, work-life harmony, and that may be where they're coming to for me. But what I also find is a lot of times people are coming to me because there's a pattern in their relationships
Okay.
that is causing the stress and anxiety and challenge. And so, that seems to be, this is where I think the anthropology and
Yeah.
and all of that, and understanding humans and systems and patterns, it comes into play. And so, and then also the couple decades in human resources helping people navigate challenges at work. So, sometimes that is the source of the challenging workplace or the lack of work-life harmony, because people don't know how to have
Yeah.
a relationship with coworkers who are dumping work on their plate, or they can't say no, or a boss who, maybe they don't feel supported by or safe with. So a lot of the interpersonal relationships play a big role in, just having a better work life.
Yeah. I can see where that would be the case. If there's someone listening today, and maybe without making this overgeneralized, but if there's someone listening today and they're thinking, that's me, I'm
Yeah.
stuck. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you could offer to them, that maybe what's one small shift that they could start today or tomorrow, whenever they're listening to this, that they could
Yeah.
try?
I mean, honestly, it almost sounds like it's overly simplified, but I really believe in the power of the pause,
Yeah.
where it could just be a breath, but being able to have enough mindfulness to recognize that you have a choice. It's that, that little bit of time and space between the stimulus and your response.
Yeah.
If you can build in that breath, that pause, you might make different choices, and you might be able to see where you're in patterns. um it's funny, I share with a lot of people that one of the things that was a big shift for me, that the power of the pause kind of created for me,
Yeah.
is I used to reply to emails. We need to be responsive, and I'd get back to people and be so responsive. And then I'd find myself offering to do something for them that wasn't asked, but it
Yeah.
was just me in my people pleasing mode, trying to help somebody out. And the power of the pause helped me create a mantra for myself, which I had as a sticky note on my monitor. Just because I can doesn't mean I should.
Yeah.
And so before I would hit send on those emails, delete the offer. Like, I don't have time for
Every
that,
time.
and no one is asking for it.
Yeah.
So, like, if they ask, then you can reconsider. But like, take that hot second. Is this really like setting you up for the, the outcome that you want?
Yeah. I think you've just given us the title of the show, Power of the Pause, because I think that could be applied to so many aspects of my life.
Oh my gosh. I mean, if you just think with your kids, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
it that you need?
And it is something you strive for every single day, is to be able
Yes.
to pause.
Yes. Yes.
Pause
Yes.
in that. So that is really great advice all around, whether you are in the corporate setting or you are at home.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
That was perfect. Well, let's
Thank
switch
you.
gears a little bit and let's
Yeah.
talk about who you are as a reader. So, what
Okay.
type of books do you enjoy reading?
Whew. I like a lot of different books, and I am one of those people that has like a nonfiction audiobook going, and then I'm reading a fiction one on my Kindle, and then I have the hard copy of a different book on my desk. So I probably would say I rotate between kind of the nonfiction books of, my genre, keeping up with
Yeah.
the business kind of books, self-help and whatnot. And then I love a good mystery, a thriller, really creative books, things that are just written beautifully. Like I love uh, Isabella Allende's writing, a lot of
Yes.
the Japanese authors that write so colorfully and beautifully, and Spanish authors. Like a lot of global authors, I
Yeah.
find, have just beautiful language. So sometimes I don't even remember what the book is about. I just love, the language that they're using to describe things is
Yeah.
just so vivid and beautiful. But then, right now I'm reading a Dan Brown book, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm falling asleep, but I gotta keep reading.
Yeah. Well, I think you are not alone in the way that you read, because I actually just had my hair done today and my hairstylist is a big reader too. And we were
Oh
talking,
yeah.
I mean, she reads the exact same way and so do I. So I think there are way more of us out here in the world that read
Mhm.
like that. And I think
Yeah.
that allows us to have multiple books going at the same time, right? Because you're
Yeah.
not then overlapping subject or topic,
Right.
because it's different enough that you can read four books at a time and it's
Yes.
not going to conflict with the other story
Yes.
that you're reading.
Yes.
Because that's
Yes.
usually what I get. Like, don't you get them confused? And I was like, well, they're all very different.
Yeah.
So I'm not reading like the same story, like two historical fictions back to
Right.
back.
Right.
So,
Yes. Yes.
how in your busyness do you find time to read?
Well, that's where I feel like the audiobooks are that's what I consume the most,
Yeah.
because I feel like, chauffeuring teens around town,
Yeah.
I have a lot of car time. Walking the dog, I have a lot of walk time.
Yeah.
So I feel, cooking dinner, like I just I don't know, it's like nice for me to have that kind of keep me company and all those little snippets, but it adds up.
Yeah. And it keeps your mind occupied while you're doing some more
Yeah,
mundane tasks.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you have brought three books with you today in the form of a book flight. Can you tell us how
Yes.
you chose these books?
Yes. Well, I think I wanted to pick a few different kinds of books.
Okay.
I think so. The first one is The Art of the Gathering by Priya Parker, who I just like. That book to me was just revolutionary in terms of my work, how I think about things. I love to gather people,
Yeah.
whether that's in a corporate setting or in my personal life. And that book is really about how do you just enrich the connection between people. And so I just love it, love it, love it.
That sounds like a book that I need to read today.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's one thing I've thought like in creating book clubs or creating like that is one thing I really enjoy doing is like curating groups of people to come together. Like I think we would all get
Oh yeah.
along really well. Like that's so I'm like, oh, this sounds like it would
Yeah.
be right up my alley, and I have not read it before.
Yes. Oh yeah. You will definitely dig that book then. Highly
Perfect.
recommend.
So that
Yeah.
was The Art of the Gathering by Priya
Yes.
Parker. And what's the next
Yes.
book you brought?
And then the next book is The Rabbit Effect. And that is by my good friend, Kelly Harding, who's also one of my co-founders for our kind of club. And it is a beautiful book. It's all about the impact of kindness on our health.
Oh, okay.
And so she talks about, I think there's 10 social determinants of health. And so somewhat similar, right? Art of the Gathering, right? It's all about the people that we surround us with, the kindness and whatnot. And, it just makes you think about, there's kindness, which is wonderful, but when you add the health element of it, it
Yeah.
kind of blows your mind
Yeah.
how it can really impact your well-being. So really just, I mean,
And I
I would
didn't
have
even know
loved the
there was a
book
book
even
out
if,
there, yeah, about that.
yes.
And I'm like, oh, I want to know more.
Yeah. So even without her being one of my best friends,
Yeah.
like it is an amazing book. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So that
love
was The
that.
Rabbit Effect by Dr. Kelly
Yes.
Harding. And before we go
Yes.
off of this, because I'm glad you brought it back up, tell
Yeah.
us about our kind of club. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I want to know more.
Yeah, so our kind of club is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to create a kinder and healthier world for all. And so we do that right now, because we're a fairly new nonprofit. We do that right now through spreading stories as well as some of the research around kindness and its impact on health
Yeah.
through our newsletter. And then we also have monthly kindness campfires. And that's
Fun.
where we have people come join us in a virtual setting. We have people from all over the world join us once a month, and we just share stories of kindness as well as give people some time to talk about kind of kindness practices. So it's just, it's like 1 hour, but everybody generally tells us that they just feel so great
Yeah.
after that. Just the hour of just hearing about kindness. So we're kind of living out the research really.
Yeah.
But it's great. We get people sharing with us that, wow, I went to 2 sessions, 2 virtual meetings, and I'm already noticing a difference in my mental health. So
Yeah.
it's
It
very,
sounds
very
like it
cool.
would restore your faith in humanity a little bit through attending.
Yes,
How,
yes.
if the listeners are like, ooh, I want to check that out, how would they find information about it?
Yeah, that's at ourkindofclub.com.
Oh,
And you
perfect.
can
Okay.
sign up. Yeah, you can sign up for the newsletter there as well as a kindness campfire.
Okay, perfect. I will include that in the show notes to make that really easy
Awesome.
for the listeners as well.
Awesome.
Well, I
Thank you.
digress. Let's head back to the book flight. What is the
Okay.
last book you chose?
So the last book I chose was The Midnight Library. And I think the reason why I chose that is because I think a lot of what I feel like we've been talking about in ways is reinvention.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Midnight Library is a little bit, what if my life went a little differently? It's a little the
Yeah.
sliding doors effect, a little bit about the choices that we make. And, in the case of the book, without revealing too much, maybe it's a little bit less of choices, but
Yeah.
just I don't know. It just really sparked something for me around could my life have been different and who would I be? And, kind of going back to our conversation about our different identities and whatnot. So, yeah,
I
I
think
just loved it.
Yeah, I think that you can see retrospectively, right, where when things happen in your life, how that made an impact, but definitely not in the moment. And you're not, a lot of times, you're not actively making this choice that's going to set your life on the way it's going to go. But I can
Yeah.
see pinpoints where, like, I never thought I'd be where I am today. and doing the things
Yes.
I'm doing in my life, but here we are. And it's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all, but I can pinpoint moments in my life of like, yep, that's why. And it completely took a right turn from where I thought I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, like going back to where we were talking somewhere in the middle here
Yeah.
around, the idea that we feel stuck in a job that we maybe don't like and whatnot. And there may be any number of reasons why we're not leaving that job. But, sometimes I know I've talked to some of my coaching clients about this. They get so caught in the fear of if I leave it, then I'm no longer that they forget that there could be this amazing thing on the other side that you never would have thought possible, right? Similar to what you were saying.
Yeah. And I think fear can hold us back from making that step forward. And there was a quote that I loved because I remember when my husband joined the military and we moved all the way to Hawaii and we were 5,000 miles from friends and family. And all of a sudden, I remember my mom flew out there with me because I had two cats at the time. And
Yeah.
so we each had a cat under our seat and flew to Hawaii. And she came for 10 days to kind of help me get settled. And then we were shopping. It was day 9. She was getting ready to leave tomorrow. And we're in the middle of the Navy exchange. And I look at her and I realized like, I just started crying in the middle of the store because I'm like, the last person I know is leaving and I'm 5,000 miles from home and I know no one.
Yeah.
And I did have a job lined up. I just hadn't started. I obviously had my husband. We were newly married, right? That was a new relation, new experience. We
Yeah.
were living together and all of that. And I just had this moment of like, what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And my poor mom was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just having a moment that like you're leaving tomorrow and I know no one." And now I think we've moved probably 8 times at this point, which so I've done that 8 times where I move and I know no one. So it goes to show that,
Yeah. It becomes a skill,
yeah.
and a skill that extends not just to you, but also to your whole family. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like I've met, some people where I'm like, God, they could talk to anybody. And they're like, yeah, I lived all over the world and I always had to pick up and make new friends and whatnot. I mean, it really teaches you such survival skills,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah. And
socially and
you
otherwise,
prove to
probably.
yourself that you can do it, right? I think that's more the point I was trying to make is the more you
Yeah.
step out of your comfort zone, or sometimes you're forced, right? Like I was
Yeah.
not, that wasn't a choice I voluntarily made. And I granted, yes, I got to live in Hawaii. That was amazing, but it wasn't the voluntary choice
Yeah.
of doing that. But the more you do it, the more you prove to yourself you can. And it's still, you're
Right.
still afraid. Like we have a move coming up in a few years and I'm already like, but our community's here. Like, what do you mean we have to
Yeah.
leave our community?
Yeah.
And that's a couple years in the horizon, but I'm already having those feelings of like, well, what if, and I'm like, I'll make a friend again. Like, you can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, but that's natural, right? You're always going to have both the fears and the excitement and
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for bringing those books with you today. I think they
Yeah.
really highlight some of the points we've hit in the episode. So that's a great selection. How I love to end our show is with our speed round of questions you can answer
Okay.
really quick. Are
Okay.
you a rereader?
Mm, not intentionally.
I love it. Is that like you start reading something like, wait, maybe I've read this before? Is it like one of those moments?
Yes. Yes.
I've done
It's
that too.
probably more because I get a lot of my books from the library. So it's like, it's off my list.
Yeah. Yeah. I use Goodreads for that reason because then it's portable and it's in my
Ah,
pocket. So if I'm at the library, I can be like, wait, have I read this before?
yeah, that's smart.
Because it's hard to remember them all. It really is.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
What is one book you've read that has changed your life?
I'll just say one of them because I feel like I've
Yeah.
had a lot of, impactful books,
Sure.
thankfully. But um, I think there was a book that I read in my coaching program called Leadership Empowerment. I think that's the name of it, by Wendy Palmer.
Okay.
Um, and I think it just really opened up for me just a different view of empowerment and taking action. And yeah, I feel like it really unlocked
Changed. Yeah.
a lot of things for me. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes.
Where is your favorite place to read?
Well, this doesn't happen very much, but usually poolside at a resort
There
on
you go.
vacation. That is when I really have like, I'm just gonna relax here and just read.
And you plan out what you're going to read there. I mean, it's a whole
uh,
experience.
yes, yes. That's the luxurious, the walking around with an audiobook in my ear while I'm cooking and multitasking is not, it's fine.
That's reality.
That's reality,
Yeah.
yes. But my favorite place is in front of some body of water.
There you go. Lastly,
Yeah.
what are you reading next?
What am I reading next? I think the next book on my list that I haven't started is called Meditation for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman.
Okay.
I read his book, his other book. He may have more books than I'm familiar with, called 4,000 Weeks, which is time management for mortals, and I really liked that one.
I like his
So
titles. Those are
I
fun.
know, yes, yes. So yeah, so I really liked 4,000 Weeks. So now I'm like, okay, well, let's try Meditation for Mortals.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me tonight. I know your time is precious, and I appreciate all
Yes.
you've given me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation, both before the podcast and after.
Yeah, you're
All right.
welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Lindsay Barnett, including her book flight of books that she loves, featuring themes of change and how your life could be different. You can find all the books that we talked about today at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.